Well, it's Friday morning, and it's time for another About Mansfield Consumer Advice series. I'm Steve Casillo. Thank you for being here today. And today, as we do every Friday morning, we turn our microphone and our camera over to just over my right shoulder. Mo, it's actually my left shoulder. There he is. Phillip Washington Jr., our Chief Investment Officer with Stonehill Wealth Management and host of the Wealth Building Made Simple podcast. Say hello to the audience.
How's it going, audience? How's it going, Mansfield?
You told me this morning that life is great because we're living in Mansfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, my kids go to school in Mansfield, but I'm technically Grand Prairie, so I get the best of both worlds.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You probably don't get the Mansfield taxes then, do you?
Part of it, yeah, we pay part of it for the school district. We're like in a weird neighborhood where we pay taxes to two mob bosses.
I had to think. Wait, did he just say mob bosses?
Yeah, that's where the system comes from. You pay to the feudal lords. We pay for protection, and I appreciate the protection and the good streets and the safety and the education. So
there you go.
It's all good.
Today we're talking about understanding asset pricing, and so you know what? You're the financial expert. I am not. And so let me just put that ball right there on top of the tee and let you whack it down the fairway. What do we mean by understanding asset pricing?
Yeah, so there's like a lot of technical, financial models that people use to estimate the value of things, and I learned them. And just like anything else in life, as you grow to understand things more, I feel like at least I've been able to make it simpler in my mind and to explain it. And the first concept is to understand that everything is priced in relative terms. So when we say, an iPhone costs $1,000, that's like 1,000, units, right, of dollars to buy one iPhone, right? So one iPhone is the unit, and it costs $1,000 to buy it. So it's iPhone price relative to dollars you have, right? And that's really important to understand as a concept because as you're building wealth, you're thinking of like, how does my wealth grow in relative terms? So that's like the first part to understand. And then the other part, and we can dig deeper in a second, but the growth in relative value, what backs it is like faith, right? Faith. If people perceive the value of iPhones being more valuable than dollars over time, then the price of the iPhone goes up, right? And vice versa. If people perceive the value of dollars to be higher relative to iPhones, then the price of iPhones will go down over time.
Sure.
Right? So it's the relative value formula.
That makes sense. And so moving that into the financial world and understanding the asset pricing, where do we stand on that?
Yep. So I like to think of what causes increased and decreased faith in asset classes, and it boils down to the generations, right? Because every generation has their likes, dislikes, and perspectives, and just like as generations, as the wealth shifts from generation to generation, so does the things that they like to spend their money on, things like they like to store their value in. So I'll use an example, right? My uncle, Uncle Phil boy, he used to love watching baseball games. Not watching baseball games. He used to love listening to baseball games on the radio.
Sure.
Like, because for him, that was technology when he was 20 years old, right? The fact that you can like listen to a baseball game and not be there was like technologically advanced relative to the previous generations that he grew up with, and so he carried that preference, right, to the end of his life, and he would like listen to baseball games instead of watching when they were on TV. I didn't understand. I was a kid, like, why don't you just watch it? But that was what he was used to, right? Same with asset classes, right? So like you get if you take the generations and you divide them up by 4, right, in 25-year increments, you think about, all right, The asset classes of 75 to 100 year olds, right? Go back and look at the chart in history, and you say, oh, okay, that was like their asset classes that were the darlings, and the preferential asset classes were like treasury bonds because they were children of the depression, or they were in the depression, so treasury bonds did well in a low inflation period. AT&T, right, was the innovator of that time. You had oil and gas companies that were phenomenal because of Standard Oil and everything that they were doing to tighten up that industry in that period of time.
Yeah.
Those asset classes today, if you're building a portfolio, are more like stable, income generating assets. Not a lot of appreciation, but they're stable asset classes, at least today. So then you go to the next generation. Or the next generation, that's people that are typically somewhere between 50 to 75. You might call it, it's not super accurate, but you might call it the boomer generation, right? And the boomer generation's asset classes are, think of like when we start building up suburbs. So like the McDonald's, the Walmart. You also have boomers that were part of the futures market, which is the current monetary system that is dying, but that we are under. And I don't want to go too nerd on that, but those are asset classes that are, they do better than the previous generation asset classes, but they're beginning to show signs of age.
So the assets, they change with generations.
Like everything else. And a lot of people have resistance, thinking, they'll say, oh yeah, I understand that we have seasons. I understand that we have life and death of humans. I understand that fashion changes. I understand that music changes, and I said, yeah, asset classes do too. And I said, in the same way that resistance hurts you if you're not open to change, right? Or really stops the flow of your appreciation if you're not open to change. It happens in investments too. So if you are, I'll use the last example, 0 to 25, right? I got for any if you have kids that are 0 to 25, or somebody who's 0 to 25, then you know that digital money, like nobody in that generation resists digital money. They all understand digital money is money. Like, what's the difference? They grew up on video games, storing value in video games, and and so NFTs and Bitcoins are a non-trapped version of that. They're like, yeah, of course. The only resistance is from the other generations, and what happens is like those generations transition to the next life, right? And this generation gets more, the other generations get more wealth, and then their asset classes become the preferred and most valuable asset classes.
Right. And you talk about having faith, that you have to have, you got to believe that going from the dollar to digital dollars to digital a monetary system, but
Yeah,
part of that is having faith in it.
right. Yeah, because everything in society is backed by faith, right? I mean, why do we follow the rules, right? Because we have faith in the legal system to different degrees.
Yeah.
Why did I pay $7 for a cup of coffee, right? I believe it.
Especially when right down the hall, it's free.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it tastes better, right? And that's and that's relative. So like everything that we do as humans is like backed by belief. You might say, well, no, I have to. No, you don't have to do anything. like everything that we do is based on like what we believe our preferences.
Sure.
Period. Right? And so if you want to be a good investor, understand the generations and then understand if all the wealth is in a generation that has resistance, and that wealth is going to transition to a generation that doesn't yet have the wealth, right? And so you park your money in the assets of that generation where the money is coming, and then you wait, and as it appreciates, right, your value appreciates over time. Again, I'm got to give the disclaimer, right? This has happened since the beginning of humans, right? But it could always change. Nothing's guaranteed, right? The past is no indicator of future performance. But I'm giving you the background behind how all this stuff works.
Right. By the way, in the about a minute or so that we have left, in the defense of radio, and your uncle listening to the ball games on radio. Radio being theater of the mind, you have to envision the game in your mind. And it's great to sit there in front of the TV and watch the baseball game in high definition, and you can see what's going on. It's actually more exciting to listen to it on the radio because you are now putting the ball game in your mind. And
well, and it's funny you say that because the other aspect of it is what ends up happening since we do it in 100-year increments. You have the new generation re-picking up radio, i.e. podcasting, in the current form that's delivered today. So I know a lot of people who love listening to podcasts better than watching the videos. I mean, as me, I like listening to some podcasts. And so it reinvents itself just in different ways. And the point is to just be open and understand what's going on so you can make a clear and informed decision outside of resistance, because resistance is the enemy.
Yeah. If someone wanted to reach out to you and reinvent themselves financially, how can they reach out to Phillip Washington Jr.?
The best way is go to my website, stonehillwealthmanagement.com. That's stonehillwealthmanagement.com, or follow me on Instagram at Ask Phillip. Yeah, just Ask Phillip.
Ask Phillip.
Yes.
On Instagram.
On Instagram.
You can also find you on LinkedIn, I think.
LinkedIn, too. Look me up, Phillip Washington Jr.
There you go.
I'm there. I hang out there a lot.
We do. we do this every Friday morning. It's the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. Phillip, let's do it again next week.
All righty. Thank you.